Imagine for a second, you are the chief of a small coastal tribe in 17th century West Africa. Your main task is to protect your people from larger, more aggressive neighbors. And then one day, a ship with white sails appears on the horizon, unlike anything you have ever seen before. Pale-skinned strangers offer you a deal. They don't want your land. They offer you a technological marvel capable of guaranteeing your tribe's safety firearms. In return, they ask for only one thing: people. 10 healthy captives from an enemy tribe for 10 muskets. What would you choose? To remain true to your traditions and most likely perish at the hands of enemies who have already made such a deal, or to accept the rules of a new, brutal game in order to survive? This choice is not a hypothetical puzzle. It is the reality that plunged an entire continent into fire for 400 years. Initially, Europeans were not conquerors in Africa. They had neither the strength nor the immunity to local diseases to advance deep into the continent. They were traders on the coast, offering textiles, alcohol, jewelry, and, of course, weapons. Trade was conducted with local rulers who had complete control of the situation on their land. And at first, people were not the main commodity. Gold, ivory, spices, that's what interested the captains. But on the other side of the Atlantic, in the New World, sugarcane and cotton plantations were growing at an incredible rate, demanding more and more labor. Demand created supply, and very soon human cargo became the most profitable currency. But how did entire nations agree to this? Was it all just about the greed of a few chiefs? To understand this tragedy, one must acknowledge an uncomfortable fact. Slavery existed in Africa long before the arrival of Europeans. It was a complex social phenomenon. Prisoners of war, debtors, or criminals could become slaves. However, it was not the lifelong, hereditary stigma based on race that it was in the Americas. A slave could have a family, property, and even hope for freedom. The system was cruel, but it was part of the local way of life. Europeans did not create slavery in Africa. They did something far more terrible. They hacked into this system and turned it into a ruthless assembly line. They connected a local mechanism to the engine of the global economy, and the catalyst for this explosion was a single piece of technology. That technology was the musket. Imagine a domino effect stretching across the entire continent. Tribe A buys guns to defend against Tribe B. Now Tribe B, in order to survive, is also forced to find a way to buy guns. European traders are willing to give them weapons in exchange for slaves. To get slaves, Tribe B attacks Tribe C. Now Tribe C faces the very same choice: arm themselves or be destroyed. This is how the monstrous gun-slave cycle was set in motion. You were either the hunter or the prey. Refusing to participate in this arms race meant certain death. It was a trap that snapped shut for hundreds of years. But was everyone merely a victim of circumstance? Or were there those who learned to reap incredible profits from this chaos and build entire empires on blood? And such players appeared very quickly. Kingdoms like Dahomey or the Ashanti Empire made the slave trade the foundation of their economy and state power. These were no longer small tribes trying to survive. They were centralized, militarized states with professional armies whose sole purpose was to capture prisoners. The army of Dahomey, including the famous female warriors whom Europeans nicknamed Amazons, struck terror into their neighbors. Their prosperity directly depended on the number of people they could capture and sell. Imagine yourself in the place of a resident of a small, peaceful village. Every rustle in the night could mean the arrival of slave hunters. Your life, the life of your family, all of it could be turned into a commodity in an instant. But what happened to those who were unlucky? What awaited them after capture? Their journey was a road to hell. First, an exhausting march to the coast, sometimes for hundreds of kilometers, shackled together in pairs. those who collapsed from exhaustion or illness were simply left to die. The survivors were crammed into the holds of slave fort stone fortresses on the coast. Imagine the smell of this place, a mixture of fear, sweat, disease, and death. Here they waited for weeks, sometimes months, for a ship, seeing the ocean for the first and last time in their free lives. The culmination of this horror was the Door of No Return, a narrow opening in the fort's wall through which people were led directly to the boats that took them to the ship. After passing through it, a person said goodbye to their homeland forever. But if this system was so massive and cruel, why did it last for so long? And what, in the end, was able to stop it? Did the world simply have a moral awakening one day? The end of the transatlantic slave trade was caused not only by humanism, but also by cold economic calculation. In the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution hit Europe and America. The New World needed not slaves on plantations, but raw materials for factories: palm oil, rubber, cotton. And wage labor in factories turned out to be more economically profitable than slave labor. The machine began to defeat the muscle. Yesterday's slave traders began to preach free trade and the fight against slavery because it became more profitable for them to have Africans remain on their own land and produce the resources needed for the factories. The economy that had spawned this horror was the very thing that killed it. So, did Africans sell their neighbors for weapons? The answer is both yes and no. It was not a simple transaction where some Africans sold others out of pure malice. It was a tragic spiral triggered by external demand and new technology. The existing forms of slavery in Africa were grotesquely mutated, turning into a race for survival where refusal to participate meant annihilation. Some became victims of this system, while others became its brutal beneficiaries, building empires on human lives. It was a trap where the initial choice, made for the sake of survival, ultimately led to a catastrophe of continental scale. And what do you think? Was there a point in this system where one could say no, or did the trap snap shut immediately? Write your opinion in the comments, and if you found this investigation important, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next stories. Share this video, because such complex topics need to be discussed. And next time, we'll talk about how one book printed in Europe managed to change the world more than all the weapons combined.